The deep dive is back, and today we're tackling a mystery that has generated more speculation than a surprise title defense.
hmm
We are wrestling with the question that has been echoing across the sports entertainment universe since, November 2025?
That's right.
Where in the world did Tiffy Time go?
It really is the central question, isn't it? I mean, especially for fans of the women's division. Tiffany Stratton she'd established herself as the undisputed workhorse champion.
Absolutely.
She was consistently putting on these high-quality matches, building just tremendous momentum, and then, poof. After her title loss to Jade Cargill at Saturday night's main event, she just vanished from TV.
And the rumors started instantly.
Instantly.
Yeah.
And you, the listener, you asked us to take the full stack of sources and find the definitive truth behind the silence.
Exactly. The chatter just exploded after that match, the one that, officially ended the Tiffy Time Championship era.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to cut through all that initial speculative noise. We're going to look at the two main conflicting theories. We're going to reveal the confirmed legitimate reason for her time off. And then, and this is crucial, we're going to spend some real time on the complex strategic booking.
The why behind the how.
Yes. The decisions that not only defined that short final match, but also ultimately protected her long-term status. We have to separate the creative plans from the real-world necessity. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it. Let's start with the hard facts and that initial, very confusing timeline.
So the basic fact is simple. Tiffany Stratton off WWE television since November 2025. But that immediately created this information vacuum.
Which it always does in this business.
Always. And it just generated instant rumors. The first one and the one that got the most traction came from Dave Scheer.
The owner of PW Insider.
Right. And he reported a very specific creative decision.
Scheer's theory was that this was purely intentional. He was suggesting that Triple H decided to take Stratton off TV to give both her and her character, a much-needed rest.
After that long championship run.
Exactly. A long, high-intensity run. The idea was to just reset, refresh the character, and then bring her back fresh, maybe right before the Royal Rumble to capitalize on that energy.
And on the surface, that sounds plausible, right? Resting a top star.
It does.
But it was almost immediately criticized and dismissed by a whole lot of wrestling analysts. And here's why that theory didn't really stick.
Just don't do it.
You just don't. You don't bench a cornerstone star, especially one who's just hitting her stride in terms of performance and marketability for 2 full months just for rest.
It's a massive business risk.
Yeah.
I mean, keeping a star of her caliber off TV for that long is a guaranteed loss of momentum. It just cools down her brand.
Merchandise sales dip.
Merch sales, that connection with the audience, maybe, a 2 or 3 week creative break, that works. But 2 full months, pulling her out of the entire holiday cycle and the build-up to the Rumble.
No way.
The expense in lost visibility is just too high for someone they're actively trying to elevate into a main event spot.
Yeah.
The rest theory, it felt insufficient.
Yeah, it sounds less like a strategic rest and more like, I don't know, hoping that problem just goes away. So if the creative timeout theory was wrong, what's the real story?
And that's where we shift to the source that provided the actual clarity.
Uncle Dave.
We turned to Dave Meltzer in the Observer newsletter. And his report, it gave us the true, legitimate reason for her absence.
And it's pretty straightforward.
It is. Tiffany Stratton is off TV right now due to a legitimate injury. And that just pulls her absence right out of the realm of creative uncertainty and puts it firmly into real-world health necessity.
Which immediately makes sense of the whole thing. But what's so fascinating is how little information came with that finding.
What?
Meltzer's report was described as basically a one-liner. We got the reason injury, but we got almost zero background detail.
Exactly. The reporting on this was completely undisclosed. We have no specifics on the type of injury, the severity, how long she'll be out.
Or even when it happened.
Or when it happened. That's the critical question. Did she suffer this during the match with Jade Cargill? Or was this something she was already working with and just managing, through the final stages of her title run? The company just didn't confirm anything.
And that silence, it feels very deliberate. Usually in the wrestling world, when you have a lack of detail like that, it raises alarm bells.
Oh, yeah.
But in this case, analysts actually drew a pretty optimistic interpretation from the secrecy itself.
They did. Because the situation stayed so quiet, no public statements, no visible travel updates, it strongly suggests she did not need major, immediate surgery.
And when we talk about major surgery in this industry, we often talk about a trip to a specific place.
We're talking about Birmingham.
And for any listeners who don't follow every medical update, Just explain why Birmingham is the key signifier here.
So Birmingham, Alabama is home to Dr. James Andrews' surgical facility. It's where pretty much every high-profile wrestler goes for major joint or structural repairs.
ACL tears, that kind of thing.
ACL tears, rotator cuff surgeries, significant spinal issues. If she had gone to Birmingham, we would know. The injury would be public, and her absence would automatically be projected as, 6 to 9 months?
Potentially missing WrestleMania.
Definitely. The fact that this was all kept so contained implies it's a manageable issue, something that needs focused rehab, but not necessarily, immediate invasive reconstruction.
That is a crucial distinction. It completely pivots the narrative. So if we connect this lack of information to the bigger picture, the speculation is that she was likely already dealing with something.
Something low-grade or nagging.
Right. And the title loss provided the perfect planned window for her to step away. The company could say, look, you've done the hard work, take the title off and just heal up.
And the optimistic timeline now suggests she could be ready to return around Mania season.
Which is a much, much more hopeful picture than the initial doom and gloom.
Yeah, and it allows the company to turn a bad news story, an injury, into a perfectly executed strategic time off. She maintains her star status while she rests.
Which brings us directly to the match itself.
Yep.
Because this is where the creative booking meets that real-world necessity.
This is where it gets really interesting.
This is the core of the deep dive right here. We have to look at the structure of that final match against Jade Cargill. It was short.
Barely 6 minutes.
And it was decidedly one-sided. Stratton was, as the source materials put it, beat up pretty badly. This wasn't some competitive epic, it was a statement.
A statement. And that statement was necessary for two main strategic reasons.
Let's break them down. Reason one.
Reason number one is the protection of the outgoing champion, Tiffany Stratton. Despite the decisive loss, WWE went to great lengths to make sure her character remained bulletproof.
They used a built-in narrative to protect her.
They did. And what was that narrative?
The knee.
The knee. She had been selling a knee injury leading into the match. Now, this wasn't real life, but it was the key narrative device. It let the storyline position her as a babyface fighting champion.
The message was clear. She was courageous. She went out there to defend her title against a major challenger, even though she wasn't 100%.
It portrays immense heart. And the way she lost is key here, too.
Right, she didn't tap out.
She didn't tap out to a submission. She wasn't just pinned after some basic move. She was physically overwhelmed, incapacitated by brute force, and a devastating finisher. It preserves her fighting spirit.
So the injury explains the performance dip without making her look suddenly less talented.
Exactly. And this is where the real-life injury and the fictional one just blur. It is highly likely that this storyline knee injury was the result of working a legitimate, albeit minor injury right into the plot.
If she was already managing something, just incorporate it.
It allows for a seamless transition to the mandatory time off.
Okay, but here's a question. If they knew she was managing an injury, even a minor one, why risk her working any match at all? Even a 6-minute one. Doesn't that risk making a minor injury a major one?
And that's the classic high-stakes gamble in sports entertainment. The answer is the match had to happen because the title had to change hands, which we'll get to. But they mitigated the risk by making it incredibly short, decisively booked, and focusing all the offense on the challenger. Stratton was out there to sell the story of bravery and then sell the dominance of her opponent. She minimized her own strenuous output. It was a calculated risk that let the story transition cleanly.
And that leads right into reason number two.
Establishing the new champion.
The match had to be a dominant performance to solidify Jade Cargill's new position.
The whole structure was designed to establish Jade Cargill as an unstoppable force. She wasn't just beating the champion, she was dismantling her. Cargill needed to be cemented as a monster, the next big thing, in her new role as a heel.
So the story told in those 6 minutes was that Tiffany Stratton, even at her best, and definitely not at 100%,
she cannot match, she cannot compete with, and she cannot stand up to the force that is Jade Cargill at this point in her career. The dominant squash victory was absolutely necessary to launch that new, monstrous heel persona.
It's just the ultimate efficiency in storytelling. They simultaneously explain the loss for the outgoing protected star.
And solidified the dominance of the incoming dominant star, all while setting up the perfect reason for the champion to take time off. but you can't really appreciate the necessity of it without looking at the long-term feud.
This is the crucial context, because that match at Saturday night's main event, it wasn't a fresh encounter. This was the end of a rivalry that had arguably been stretched a bit thin.
A lot thin.
Let's review that history, because it shows the pressure they were under. This
Yeah.
was the fourth major encounter between Stratton and Cargill.
Right. Stratton had already beaten Cargill clean at SummerSlam.
Then they had that no contest on SmackDown.
And then there was that triple threat match with Nia Jax, which the source material bluntly called one of the worst matches in WWE in 2025, regardless of gender.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's harsh. But it emphasizes how much pressure was on this final match. The stakes weren't just the title. They were about rehabilitating the credibility and the quality of the feud itself.
And the fact that Jade had already failed to win the title 3 times, if you count the triple threat.
It made this final encounter mandatory. And mandatory that Jade win, and win decisively.
And if we connect that to the big picture, the heel turn by Jade right before this match cemented the fact that a title change simply had to happen now.
There was no other outcome. They had exhausted all the other narrative paths. They absolutely could not risk a fourth failure for Jade Cargill.
That would have been a catastrophe.
To have invested an entire year, built her up, positioned her as the next big thing, and then have her come up short in the final decisive match, it would have completely deflated her credibility as this unbeatable force. A total waste of time and effort.
So the short dominant win wasn't just a desired outcome, it was an unavoidable, necessary action to salvage their investment. WWE had to pull the trigger on the title change.
It was a point of no return. They had to execute. And by doing it in that short, decisive, overwhelming way, layered with a knee injury story, they achieved the perfect strategic balance.
They launched a dominant, credible monster heel,
while simultaneously providing a clean, protected exit for the outgoing champion to take her necessary time off to rehab. It ensured no one looked weak or foolish. It solved a creative problem and a health problem in one 6-minute segment.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We started with a pile of conflicting speculation about where Tiffany Stratton went, and here is the distilled, definitive finding. Her absence is not a simple creative cooling off period.
Yeah.
It is due to a legitimate yet wisely undisclosed injury, and likely one that didn't require major surgical intervention.
And this real-world health break, it just dovetailed flawlessly with the planned narrative. Her final championship match, where she lost to Jade Cargill, was just a textbook example of strategic booking.
It was designed specifically to protect Stratton's character, the baby-faced fighting champion who wasn't at 100%, while at the same time launching Jade Cargill as the unstoppable, dominant monster heel the company desperately needed.
It created a clean break, secured a successful launch for the new champ, and gave Stratton the time she needed to get healthy. All signs point to her being positioned perfectly for a major return.
Probably right in the thick of next year's Mania season.
I would bet on it.
Tiffy time is just paused, not over.
Indeed. And as we conclude this deep dive, consider this final thought. Given how perfectly her storyline injury, the selling of the knee, lined up with the undeniable strategic need to establish Jade Cargill's dominance in a quick, decisive way, what does this tell you about the future of blending narrative protection, kayfabe, with real-world health management in high-stakes sports entertainment? Is this highly engineered, rapid-fire, booking the new, necessary standard for writing off top stars?
That is a fascinating strategic question to chew on as the industry evolves. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive.
We'll see you next time.